I got to spend a minute on you, Matt Taibbi, because you were mentioned last week on our show. We were talking about, speaking of Politico, a political report about Anonymous, that guy who worked within the government, who came out during the Trump administration, was like, those of us at DHS, Miles Taylor, we're handling him behind the scenes. Like, we've really got control of the government. Anyway, that guy left government service in 2019 and turned out to be like a nothing burger. He was nowhere near as important as he would have had us believe. And Trump just revoked his security clearance, which no one knows why he still had it anyway, and said, I want an investigation to see if he used any classified info. So with respect to that guy and somebody else who worked for Trump, he wanted some government snooping around to see if they had done anything wrong. And he's not charging anybody. He's doing some like kicking of the tires. And Politico, in response to this, writes this article like, never before has the White House leaned on the DOJ or one of its top agencies to investigate a private citizen in retaliation for something that citizen has allegedly done. And I was like, why don't you tell it to James O'Keefe and Matt Taibbi? And I read them Ron Johnson's press release the day you testified at that hearing on the weaponization of government, only to go home and get a visit from the IRS. And Ron Johnson was saying there is zero chance this is coincidental. And then sure enough, you got audited. They began at least an audit. So I would love to know your thoughts on that Politico assertion and whether that has resolved now and the government is finally off your back.
They are. I was actually told at the end of that month. So that happened on, I think, March 9th of 2023. By the end of the month, they told me that I was in the clear. They actually owed me a lot of money. And the investigation had been started up on the same day as one of the main Twitter Files reports. And once the Judiciary Committee sent a letter to the Treasury asking basically what the deal was, they sent over a whole bunch of documents and conceded that there was nothing there, and then informed me personally that I was in the clear. So I'm not being investigated anymore. And then thanks to Jim Jordan, actually, they changed the policy about personal visits to people by the IRS. So that was actually a positive outcome to that whole thing.
Wow. I mean, your thoughts then that this by Trump is the first time it's ever happened?
Yeah, clearly not. I think we can go back through history and find many examples of people who've been investigated, or at least the DOJ has been nudged in the direction of somebody. I mean, I think that's been a feature of almost every presidential administration going back to Nixon. Am I wrong about that, Walter? I can't think of anybody who hasn't been in trouble for that. But that whole thing, the Miles Taylor, he's a character. He was a significant character in the Twitter Files. We didn't do a lot of the reports on those, but I know that there was talk about investigating him even before the end of Trump's first term. So
yeah, I'm sure there was. By the way,
maybe there's something
just in case the audience doesn't remember, the Twitter Files, of course, is the release of all sorts of files at Twitter, now X, by Elon once he took it over, showing massive government coordination with social media companies, including X, to do things like stifle all free discussion around COVID and many other subjects. Sorry, go ahead, Walter. What were you going to say?
Well, maybe I don't understand security clearances, but I thought the deal was you get one and then you get to look at stuff that you're not allowed to talk about. This guy may not have talked about classified information, but he did open his mouth very loudly and against his commander-in-chief at the time, or his executive, and why he would expect that he would not become a target once he's outed. The reason he was anonymous is that he was afraid of what he was doing. Then he got de-anonymized, and they're looking into him. That makes him a victim of some kind. And why do you keep these clearances for life? I don't understand that at all.
I don't get it either.
They walk around with them. Apparently, they're a great way to earn money because
they're a subsidy.
Yeah, they're a subsidy to people. It's sort of like an honorary badge that you can use for the rest of your life. And people who want you to look at classified things, I guess, can have you do that. But I think they should probably expire and not need to be taken away.
I agree. And then you can get it on a case-by-case basis, but that seems to be plenty. Now, not content to have had your first, or at least probably wasn't your first, Matt, but your most recent appearance before Congress result in a scary visit from the IRS. You went back to Congress. You've been back a few times. And the most recent one was just a couple of months ago, I believe, whereupon, well, you got, at this hearing, called a serial sexual harasser by some far-left California Democrat named Representative Sidney Kamlager Dove, who, I'll state up front, had zero evidence to support that defamatory claim she just pulled out of thin air to smear Matt Taibbi in a congressional hearing. Matt didn't love it. Here's what happened. Watch.
The majority is relitigating a made-up conspiracy theory about a part of the State Department that no longer exists to distract from the dumpster fire foreign policy this administration is pursuing and elevating a serial sexual harasser as their star witness in the process. Mr. Chair, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record 2 articles about the Republican witness Matt Taibbi. The first is a Chicago Reader article entitled 20 Years Ago in Moscow, Matt Taibbi was a misogynist a-hole and possibly worse, and a Washington Post article titled The 2 Expat Bros Who Terrorized Women Correspondents in Moscow.
So you did what very few people will do when they've been smeared. And you actually filed a lawsuit because while she has a congressional privilege to say all sorts of nonsense when she's in that seat, she repeated the smears on social media. I looked into this recently, and the privilege still may exist, but not to the same extent as it does when they're in their congressional seat. She exposed herself by repeating that online, and you're suing her for $10 million. So what's behind that? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, when this story first came out in 2017, it's based on a single passage in a book that I co-wrote with my former co-editor in Moscow, and it's completely fictional, like almost everything else in The Exile. I mean, The Exile was a satirical newspaper where everything was basically backwards. The whole idea was an unnewspaper. So, like, for instance, the corrections always referred to things that had never actually been in the newspaper. Most of the bylines were of fake people describing fake adventures. And in one passage, Mark described something that it didn't happen. It's a massive exaggeration of something. And so all the people who were involved were eventually contacted at that time. They recanted. There were corrections at the time. I was in litigation with some newspapers at the time. That's all been done and finished. And nobody's ever accused me of sexual harassment here or in Russia.
Not even during the Me Too movement.
None of that stuff. I'm one of those people who goes straight home from work, doesn't socialize, nothing. But I knew in the hearing, as soon as she said that, I thought about the speech and debate clause, and I realized that she's allowed to say that. And then on the way home, I saw that she was retweeting this, I think in an effort to try to get a rise out of me, because she said something along the lines of, my silence in the hearing was telling. But I think that the privilege is penetrated once you go outside Congress and start retweeting on X and Blue Sky. And I'd had enough at that point of this thing. This thing did major damage to my life and career, and it's not true. And so, for her to drag this up 7 years later, I just ran out of patience.
Good for you. No, I remember looking at this when, I can't remember whether it was Dick Blumenthal or Tim Kaine, but one of them had said to Pete Hegseth, had suggested that he was beating his wife in the hearing, or an ex-wife. I mean, like the literal, like, classic defamatory statement. And they can be protected. These guys can do whatever they want. It's disgusting. But then they repeated it on social media. And I remember saying, he should sue. And some smart lawyers responded saying, well, it's protected because of speech and debate. And I actually spent some time looking into it because I didn't think social media would qualify. And I did find a lot of big loopholes that you could drive a truck through. You are far less protected when you are tweeting as a congressman on X or on Blue Sky than you are when you're in that seat. And I think she's in for a whole messy legal battle that she didn't anticipate. So good for you, because no one ever fights back, Matt. No one ever fights back. Have you had any response from her or her team?
Well, I probably can't get into that publicly, but what I will say is that there was a lot of positive response about this, and part of that was from other journalists because, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think there's been kind of a laissez-faire attitude toward outright libel in the last 8-9 years. People just say such crazy things online, and there's this attitude that we don't have to back it up. We don't have to make notations when we make corrections. We don't have to leave it on the page to tell people that we made a mistake before. We can say what we want and get away with it. Most people won't sue, and I think you have to, because that's the argument for not censoring is that this other system actually works. And, as somebody who's very against censorship, I think when people do that kind of thing, you have to try to hold them accountable.
So Matt's too much of a gentleman to say what he really thinks, Walter, but what did you make of that exchange?
Well, Matt is a gentleman, as testified by the fact he's only suing her for $10 million. I mean, we live in the day of billion-dollar lawsuits. I think Trump just went after CBS for billions. Alex Jones coughed up, Fox coughed up to Dominion. But the damage to Matt, his family, his children, and so on from that charge, which was completely unfounded, is worth, I think, a lot more than that. So he's really being a Boy Scout by asking for so little. When I heard it, I have a lot of friends who, watch our podcast, and they started texting me saying, I can't watch this. Poor Matt, he's sitting up there, and I thought to myself, well, he likes it. He knows what's going to happen now. It's an adventure for him. Last time the IRS came, this time they libeled him. They might pull out a gun next time. I mean, he's driving Congress crazy. Yeah.
It was a hearing on the censorship industrial complex, the need for First Amendment safeguards at the State Department. I mean, it's really, that's kind of a no-brainer. Of course, we need First Amendment safeguards. We've been through quite a lot of censorship. That's what the Twitter files showed, among other things. And instead of taking any sort of a lesson and listening open-mindedly, she decided to go to the politics of personal destruction. And it was despicable.
She decided
despicable.
She decided to speak in the one kind of way that actually violates the First Amendment.
Yeah,
I mean, in the sense that,
the irony.
The irony. No censorship for her, only for others, I guess.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Just quickly is that, from the very beginning, I know when I testified about the Twitter files, 2 years ago, the Democrats treated me almost like I was worse than a Trump supporter. To them, they think of me as some kind of apostate, but I've been a lifelong supporter of the First Amendment. I've been a Democrat most of my life. I'd probably agree with them about some things if they wanted to open a discussion about what's appropriate for online regulation, but they decided to go completely in a different direction, and the political sense of that escapes me. I just don't understand why they do that.
I guarantee you that woman did no research other than on you, other than smear research, stuff that she could get to smear you. She wasn't interested in probing who you actually are, what your views are, and she was too dumb to know you. So, all of it reflected very poorly on her, and I think it will continue to. You've heard about tariffs recently, plus inflation, supply chain disruptions. It's a lot, but there is a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from the tariff talk. The administration preserved the ability to diversify into precious metals. If you are concerned about your savings, consider a free consultation with a Birch Gold Precious Metals specialist. The first step is to text MK to 989898 and receive your free no-obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, consider texting MK to 989898. Again, text MK to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.